What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co host, Will Cohen. Today, we're going to be discussing tonight's home opener for the season for the Rangers tonight against the Arizona Coyotes. It should be an interesting game. The Rangers are looking to bounce back after a pretty embarrassing defeat against the Columbus Blue Jackets. But after that pretty bad game, there were a lot of takeaways from it that we covered in yesterday's episode, but we're ready to move on and look for the future and hopefully get back in the win column tonight at home at Madison Square Garden. But really, before we dive deep into this game and what the Rangers need to do in order to pull off that win, just make sure everyone likes, subscribes, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. Make sure to follow all of our social media channels to keep up with all of our Rangers news at Fireside Rangers on both X and Instagram. And before we really get into it, Will, how are you doing today?
Still sick, but feeling a lot better. I feel like my energy is getting back, slowly coming back. So I'm excited for the Rangers game today after missing it on Saturday. And I don't know, I'm happy that they're back at MSG. Hopefully they score and I can hear that goal song and it'll cheer me up.
Of course, if there's anything that can get you back to normalcy, it should be a Rangers home win. But in order to do that, there are a couple of things that are going to need to happen. The first point that I do want to bring up is Capo Caco. Now, one player determining a win or not, it's hard to make that judgment right there just because it is one player on a team filled with 12 offensive players. But Kako is the only member of the top six who has not recorded a point yet. So to see him get going, I think it would be a major help. And if there's any way for him to do it, I think at home would be the perfect way. Kako was projected to have a breakout season, maybe increase his career high point total from 40 to maybe in the high 50s, maybe even 60s. But in 2 games played so far, he has recorded 0 goals and 0 assists. So throughout the 2 games we've seen so far, what are your thoughts on Kako and what kind of impact do you think he can have if he were to get on the score sheet tonight?
I mean, obviously the first two lines have gotten going and they're scoring, but I think if you get Kako in there, everyone in the top six will be going, so it'll be even better. I thought he's had a solid start to his season. I thought in the game against Buffalo, he had a lot of chances. He was taking shots from everywhere that it's something that he really wouldn't do. Obviously, we know he kind of before he liked to pass the puck a lot. It didn't seem like he was confident in his shot, but against Buffalo, it seemed like he was using it. Against Columbus, I really didn't notice him in the first period like I did Lafreniere, Hedel, and Panarin, and Zibanejad and Kreider. He was kind of the only guy in the top six that was like, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't even know a single thing he did in that first period. But I mean, like I said a couple episodes ago with Lafreniere, or not even a couple episodes ago, it was yesterday or 2 days ago. It's not always going to be, you're not always going to have a great game. You're not always going to put points up on the score sheet. But if I can notice you, I think that's a win. And I think maybe him, getting back into that top six role will take some time. But I think he's been noticeable and unnoticeable. So, but I think, like you said, him getting on the score sheet today at MSG would be huge for him and his confidence.
Yeah, and I think it is important to note that first line that he is playing on with Kreider and Zibanejad, they all skated together again today at morning practice. So it's expected that we're going to see that line stay intact tonight against Arizona. But another interesting thing is Kreider and Zibanejad. They are currently the 2 top leading point scorers for the Rangers. Kreider is number 1 with 4 points in 2 games with 3 goals and an assist. And then Zibanejad is tied for second with a couple other players with 3 points in 2 games played. But then there's just Kako. It just seems like the odd man out. So when you just look at that line that is finding success, do you think that it could be more successful if someone else was playing on that right wing and helping them produce more points? Or are you just completely satisfied with it so far and ready to just let it play out as it is?
I would let it play out as is. I don't think you can it it'll take more than 2 games to find chemistry. I know that before the season started, I was very high on that line because they were the best in the short time they played last season. They were the best Rangers 5v5. They were the best line at 5v5 for the Rangers. Sorry, but I think sometimes guys will have slow starts and then they'll pick it up. So I don't think you can just dismantle that line already or take Kako off that line, not even dismantling it. But you got to let it play out a little bit. If let's say next week Kako isn't playing, is still not finding the score sheet, he's still not playing well, is unnoticeable. Maybe you put someone else up there, but I think you shouldn't change it now. You got to let it play out a little bit more.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. It is only 2 games played. I think after a few weeks, if Kako still continues to struggle, Laviolette might need to make a couple of adjustments. But overall, even though one player is like not finding success right away, the other two on the top line are. So if they're putting up goals and points, I personally wouldn't change it. But we'll head on into the second key to bouncing back and getting a win, in my opinion. But before we do that, I just do want to mention, because I forgot to do it in the intro, me and Will, and possibly also Colin, will be going live later today before the game. So be sure to check out the channel later this evening for that. Feel free to join in the stream. Leave any questions about tonight's game that you want us to answer. But before that, we will continue with our 3 keys to bouncing back. And the second one for me is Ryan Lindgren coming back. He was randomly, I don't want to say randomly, but he was unexpectedly ruled out of the game against Columbus at like 30 minutes before the game started because of an upper body injury. I know that he did have a hard block shot against Buffalo that he appeared to like struggle with a little bit, but the next day he was back on the ice at practice. But I guess the pain was lingering, and rather than taking a risk, they ruled him out. But today, this morning at morning skate, Lindgren was back on the ice paired next to Adam Fox. So although it's unconfirmed if he's going to play tonight or not, because the lineup won't get released until just before the game, I am personally hopeful that he will make a return. But Will, I know we discussed Lindgren a little bit in yesterday's episode, what he means to the team, but just him coming back or potentially being ruled out again, what kind of impact do you think that makes? Do you think that could be a game changer if he plays or not? And how can he get the defense back into shape after last game's horrible defensive performance?
I know yesterday we talked about that record. I think they have 149 wins with him and like 42 wins, and like I think they have a negative record with that. They do have a negative record without him. Can't think of the record, but he's super important to this team, and I think he balances out the defensive pairings. Obviously, it's Gustafsson is better with not Schneider's better with Gustafsson than he is with Jones, because I think Gustafsson gives a little bit of more physicality because he's a bigger defenseman, and then Lindgren, as we talked about yesterday, Lindgren helps Fox a lot because Fox can key into his offensive game like he normally does, because Lindgren's obviously there for the defense and Fox doesn't have to stay back. He can step up. But obviously we saw that the Rangers were outclassed in physicality against Columbus, which was very weird because they looked great against Buffalo in that department. And I think with Lindgren, he's a very physical guy. He blocks a lot of shots, and I think he's going to help this defense out. He's obviously very important to this defense, but I think that will help the defense get back on track because on the penalty kill, I can't remember what Columbus did on the power play, but he blocks a lot of shots. He puts his body on the line. He's a warrior on the penalty kill, so I think it'd help out the penalty kill a lot too. But also just his physicality on at even strength with the defense would help out a lot in balancing out those defensive pairs.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you there. Just to reiterate that statistic you brought up, the Rangers do have a negative record of 47, 52, and 17 when they do not have Ryan Lindgren in the lineup. And they have a overwhelmingly positive record of 149, 82, and 57 when he does play. So the impact is there. It's all in the stats. I think another factor is who's going to end up playing goalie tonight. I know you made note that according to Colin Stevenson, Igor was the first goalie during morning skate. So normally that does mean that he would play. I don't see why the Rangers would start quick tonight, especially with the day of rest in between. This is the home opener, but there's always the chance that Quick could end up in net. Peter Laviolette is one of those coaches who kind of waits till the very last second to announce the lineup and who's starting. So it makes it really hard for us to analyze what's going to happen. But just overall, do you think it matters who's going to be in net tonight, whether it's Igor or Quick? the defense just needs to step up. But like, what kind of impact do you think the starting goalie has?
I think it does matter. We saw how Quick played in the preseason. It wasn't very good. He wasn't quick in net. No pun intended, actually. But this Arizona Coyotes team is very young. They're very fast. They're very skilled. I saw that again when I was watching their game against the Devils. Obviously, they beat the Devils in the shootout, 4-3. But they obviously have a lot of fast guys: Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, two to name. Um, Macchielli, I think is how you say his name, or Massielli. Um, and I think Igor's obviously he's a lot better than Quick in net. He's a lot faster at getting to the post and everything like that. So I think it does matter who starts in net, and I do think it'll be Igor because, like you said, why wouldn't they start Igor with the day of rest and it's the home opener? So I think Igor will start, and hopefully he has a good game against this young, raw, talented Arizona Coyotes team.
Yeah, I think it's important the Rangers don't take it too easy against Arizona because they are a team that could easily come out and outskate us, outshoot us, and win. It was kind of the same mindset heading into the game against Columbus, where we're like, don't play down to your competition because that will bite you and you will lose. And they did it anyway because it looked like the Rangers didn't have that much effort in them against the Blue Jackets. But I don't know. I'm still a little hopeful and quick. There were a lot of players who played pretty bad in preseason, but then that was immediately just put to rest as soon as the regular season started and we saw what it was like in an actual game environment. But I don't know. We'll see what happens later. I'm sure that'll be something we touch upon in the live stream once the starting goalie gets announced right before the game. But until then, we can head into our third and final key to bouncing back and beating the Arizona Coyotes, which to me is utilizing home ice advantage. This is the Rangers home opener. Whoever scheduled the Rangers season this year did an interesting job at it because in the first 18 games of the season, the Rangers only have 5 home games. So to start the year off, like basically the first quarter of the season, we're going to be on the road a lot. We have the Canada road trip coming up next week, I believe. And this game against Arizona, although it's the first home game, there's not going to be many following it for the next month or so. So I think it's very important that the Rangers utilize playing at home. People always say home field advantage when talking about football or baseball, but I think hockey is the sport most of all that it being playing at home in front of your fans matters the most. But that might be a bold take. I'm not even sure, but Will, what are your thoughts on the Rangers being at home? How can they use it to their advantage, and how important do you think it is that they are at home for this game for the first time this season?
First, I just want to go off the last thing that you said. Home field advantage in sports, or home ice advantage, is real. I mean, we saw it with the Carolina Hurricanes in the 2021-22 in the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs. They did not win a single game on the road in that playoffs. And the Rangers only won. I think they won 2 games on the road in that playoffs. But I think them, obviously last year, I know you put a stat. You said a stat. Not you said a stat. Sorry. There's a stat that they were 23, 13, and 5 at home last year. Sorry, I can't talk. 24, 9, and 8 on the road. Which, yeah, it's great to be good on the road and everything, but you really want to be successful at home because obviously that's where your fans are. You got to win in front of your fans. I think that'll help the Rangers out a lot. Fans, I saw that in the 2020 season. Once the fans got back into MSG in that year, the Rangers were a lot better at home. But for that to happen, the Rangers have to score. They have to do things that get the fan excited and loud. Because last year I was at Game 4 of the first round against the Devils, and MSG was quiet, and the Rangers looked like crap that game. So I think the Rangers feed off the fans, and I think them being at home, and they're not at home as much as they should be in the first 18 games. So they got to take advantage of when they are, and they got to win all their games at home or the first 5 home games before they hit the road.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important that they utilize this home ice advantage. The Metropolitan Division is already off to a crazy start. There are a lot of good teams in this division, and if the Rangers want to keep up, they're going to have to get these wins early on in the season. You know, everyone always says like, "Oh, it's just the regular season. It's just one game." Yes, it is just one game, but at the end of the day, one game can easily determine if you're winning the Metro or you're out of a wild card spot. So, you know, it's a crazy world that we live in, being a Rangers fan in the Metropolitan Division 2023. But there's pretty much just wrap up our three keys to bouncing back against the Coyotes. Kako needs to get something going. Linger needs to get back on the ice, and the Rangers must utilize their home ice advantage. Once again, we'll be going live later on tonight, so be sure to tune in. I believe Colin did confirm he is available today, so we'll have me, Will, and Colin ready to discuss later this evening before the game begins. But until then, make sure you leave your thoughts on the topic of this video down in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Follow all of our social medias at Fireside Rangers on both Twitter and Instagram, so you don't miss any breaking news from the Rangers or any content that we produce. But until we see you guys later this evening, have a good one, and
Let's go
let's go.
Rangers.